just have therapeutic Thursday here.
So what is the notion of Therapeutic Thursday?
For the first 5 minutes of class, we do something that's therapeutic.
10
Last week,
All right, like what is therapeutic to you? Do you want to meditate? What do you want to do?
like it just like differs. Every
Like what is like your definition of like therapeutic? Like
like when we watched Bob Ross, other time we went on a walk outside.
does anybody know how to break dance? Is that therapeutic?
No.
No?
Right, you?
Do you know how to do you guys ever play a game where you slap hands? Is that therapeutic? All right, it's like flipping coins therapeutic? Are you saying that I have to learn how to be therapeutic?
We're just saying that
And after
All right,
a lot of
everybody quiet. Quiet. Here's the thing. You have to solve this equation. And if you don't get the sum wrong. X equals 3y cubed minus I to the negative fifth plus 3. You have 40 minutes. Do it or you don't graduate. What are you waiting for? Don't you have calculators?
What are we supposed to do?
I'm joking. I'm joking.
No, you know. Well, I the negative side is
It's really complicated, right? I'm just joking. Does anybody actually know what I is?
Yeah.
What is
Square
it?
root. Negative one.
What is it?
It's a square root of -1.
Does anybody know what this is?
Yeah.
What is it?
2.731.
But what is it called? And like, why is it important?
Because it's an
Wait, I just
irrational
talked you into doing that. Like, what's going on right now in the financial sector? Because I was a financial guy. What's going on? Like, what are they talking about on CNBC and they're freaking out about? Does anybody know what everybody's freaking out about right now?
COVID.
Gas prices. Well, they know, like,
Oh, yeah.
COVID they're freaking out about, but like the people with the money, what are they freaking out about?
Gas prices.
All right, what's that? And she said what it's called. What happens?
Inflation.
Inflation. What is inflation?
Oh, when you have like a lot of money and like everyone has a lot of money, so it's like just circulating.
All right, but like here's the thing: is I was like an economics major, and there are these curves. There are these curves, and one goes like this, and one goes like this, and this is the price, right?
Oh yeah.
Does anybody know what these are called? What letters they represent? What? Supply and demand? Which one is which? It's very important to know which
Oh,
one is which.
supply is the one going up, and then demand is the one going.
They both go up. Which one?
No, demand is going down.
No, supply is going down.
Oh.
Demand is here. No, I'm wrong. I'm wrong. This is demand. This is the supply. All right, so like the whole point is, as prices go up, people want to buy stuff less, and as prices go down, they want to buy stuff more, and as prices go up, people want to supply stuff less. So like, you know, if like I got $1, like, and somebody's got a hamburger, maybe there's only 3 people in the world that want to sell me a hamburger for $1. But if I got $1 billion, then I got 1 billion people that want to sell me a hamburger for $1 billion. And that's what's happening right now. There's inflation. And what happens is that, you know, what happens and what did happen is, have you heard the issue supply chain issue? So what happens when you have a supply chain issue? You can't deal with the demand because you don't have any supplies, and that causes this to move here. And when this moves here, the world is a mess because you have higher prices and less things going on, all right? And higher prices and less stuff, it sucks, right? And you know what that's called? Does anybody know what it's called? It happened under Jimmy Carter. It was terrible. It starts with an S and it ends in inflation.
Surplus.
What?
Surplus.
Who says stagflation? Are you really that brilliant?
Trot is a genius.
Are you really a genius?
She's going to Harvard.
You're going to Harvard? All right, like, if you're a genius, I will ask you a very easy question. Wait, who wants to bet me she gets this wrong? Or I will, am I allowed to pay you $1? Will I get in trouble if I pay you $1? Alright. Is she the smartest? Are you a genius?
It's real, bro.
Who's a genius? Have I taught you before? You look familiar. Okay, are you a smart kid?
Yeah.
All right, like I'm gonna ask you a question, and if you get it right, I will give you what I'm getting paid today. Which is like $55 or something. I have no idea. I'm gonna ask you a question. Who's the smartest person in this class? You have 5 seconds to give me the smartest person in class.
You guys are intelligent.
Who's the smartest person in the class? Who knows the most? It's you. You can pick.
Oh,
Who's the
wait,
smartest
it's
person in the
Aria.
class? It's Aria?
Yeah, that girl right there.
All right, guess what? You got it wrong. It's me.
Yeah.
It was so easy. All you had to do was placate me. All you had to do was basically, like fondle me with like the pretenses that I'm intelligent. You would have made $55. You told the truth and you got penalized. Wow. Why are you so smart? What do you know?
Not me.
Oh, what do you know?
That was her.
What does your T-shirt say?
New York City.
Like, you don't even know what your T-shirt says. Your T-shirt says
I
Los
got it
Angeles.
like-
What your T-shirt says is Los Angeles, Yokohama, New York. If you move your hand, I'll tell you the rest. You know what her T-shirt? Hey, you guys, pay attention to me. You know what her T-shirt reminds me of? It's like basically a bunch of cities in a bunch of different languages. You guys never heard of the Beatles?
The Beatles?
The Beatles. Yeah, anybody ever seen the movie Yellow Submarine? Have you ever heard the song Yellow Submarine? We all live in a Yellow Submarine? Like, that's a goofy song. But the thing is that John Lennon wrote another song that's very wonderful. And he wrote All You Need Is Love, and he wrote Imagine. And he was basically saying we should all get along and stop fighting wars. And if you watch the end of Yellow Submarine, you see, because the Beatles, they're cartoon characters. They didn't participate in Yellow Submarine. But they saw it and they thought it was cool. And they did a little song John Lennon wrote, where after the movie they do a song. And it goes like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, can I have a little more? And it just looks like a children's song. A lot of Beatles songs were children's songs. Yellow Submarine is a children's song. And because they were trying to teach children not to breed, to get along, and that all you need is love. And in the video, it says all together now, and they're all holding it up, and it's in 4 different languages. He's saying all together now. What he's saying is everybody get along, whether you speak different languages, whether you're born to different people, whether you have different languages. The point of us being here on Earth is we should all get along, all together now. What do you want to say?
What happened to John Lennon?
What?
What happened to him?
What happened to him? It's one of the saddest things ever.
I didn't know. I know like a lot of people mention him.
You guys want to know what happened to John Lennon?
Yeah.
John Lennon was wicked smart. He was wicked smart, but he was damaged. You know why he was damaged? Because he was in England, and his mom was kind of a partier, and she met a seaman. I didn't mean to make that pun. That was an accident. She met I didn't mean to do that. Don't tell anybody about that. It was innocent, I swear. No, she met a guy that was like on a fishing boat, and they had a baby out of wedlock. And like the guy went back to sea, and she was too young to have a baby, and she gave him to her older sister, who was like a strict disciplinarian named his Aunt Nina. And his mother's name was Julia. The Beatles song called Julia is about his mother. And what happened was when he was 5 years old, like his parents, when he was like 4 or 5, his parents like said, he's a fisherman, he's going here, your mom's staying in England. And they said to the 5-year-old John Lennon or the 4-year-old John Lennon, like, pick between us. How do you do that when you're 3 or 4? They said pick between us. And at first he went with his father, and then he reconsidered and he went with his mom. So then he didn't know his mom until he was like 16 or 17, and by that time he was a rebel. Because John Lennon was a genius, and you know what happened to John Lennon? He went to kindergarten, and supposedly this happened. His kindergartner said, what do you want to be in life? Like, so what would your answer be? What do you want to be in life? What do you want to be?
Happy.
What do you?
Oh yes, happy.
So do you know this story?
Oh.
Or did
no.
you just guess?
I
John
would
Lennon
assume that everyone
supposed.
wants to be happy in
Well,
life.
that's what Aristotle said.
Oh.
But supposedly John Lennon, it might not be a true story, But supposedly John Lennon told his kindergarten teacher that she said, "What do you want to do with your life?" He said, "I want to be happy." And she said, "That's the wrong answer." And so like John Lennon was like a genius, but he did not do well on his tests. And in England at the time, they tested you at like 4 years old and decided your IQ and decided where you're going to go for the rest of your life. And so what they did with all the rebels that were really brilliant, but they didn't want to take the tests and they didn't take them seriously, is they wound up sending them to art school. And then they became all the rock stars, where all these guys that just didn't feel like taking the test and went to art school. But what happened, the thing that Paul McCartney and John Lennon both had in common is that their mothers died when they were young. If you ever hear the song Let It Be, he sings like, "I hear Mother Mary talking to me, speaking words of wisdom." Let it be. His mother's name was Mary, but that's also Jesus' mother. It's like a double play on meaning, but his mother died early. John Lennon lived with Zan Mimi, and Zan Mimi said, and he framed it, he constantly said, "No one will ever make a living with a guitar." And then when the Beatles made it big, he bought her a plaque with that quote, "No one will ever make it big with a guitar." He did. But he was 17, like his mother was immature to have him, and then he started hanging with his mother, and his mother played banjo, and he suddenly realized his mother was a great friend, and he suddenly got his mother back. And like, you know what happened? This is really sad. His mother was hit by a drunk guy crossing the street and died. So he got his mother back, and she died. And his whole career, he was searching for a mother. And like, you know what he called Yoko Ono, his wife? He called her mother.
Oh.
His wife?
Whoa.
No, like, so like the thing is that John Lennon, like people don't understand that John Lennon was the most rebellious guy of all time. And what he was really looking for was a mother. He wanted a mother figure. He wanted to fall in love. Every song he met before meeting Yoko Ono was about wanting to fall in love. And he was married to somebody else, but again, it was because he got her pregnant. And he met Yoko Ono and he left her for her. And like, so every song before us, he wanted to fall in love, and then he wrote the song like, Don't Let Me Down. And he's singing, "I'm in love for the first time, don't you know it's gonna last?" And he's basically saying like, "I'm in love with you, please don't hurt me. I've been hurt so many times." And then they were really controversial, and they like, when the Beatles broke up, like Paul McCartney just wanted to have a hit album. He's like, you know, the press was so obsessed with John Lennon and Yoko Ono that they decided like, they're gonna cover us anyway, we should advertise peace. So what they did was they had these bed-ins and they talked peace. They wanted people to stop the Vietnam War. Like he could have cashed in and made a lot of money, and he was broke at the time because he'd been ripped off, but he advertised peace, and they did the song Happy Christmas, War is Over, which is like a children's song, it's a beautiful song. And what happened is this guy was messed up his whole life, and then the government didn't like him, and they tried to deport him over like a silly crime in England. Like he was arrested, he was set up for marijuana possession in England, and they tried to deport him. And he was born on October 9th, and they kept trying to have a baby, and he messed up his first son's life, and he's a guy that was damaged and tried to do better. And what happened was like he had to fight the government, that Nixon was against him, and they tried to deport him, and he got this immigration lawyer, and he fought, he had a green card, and then he finally got his green card, I think on October 9th of like 1974 or something. There's a documentary called The FBI versus John Lennon. It's the same day that his son was born, Sean Lennon. It was October 9th, it's his birthday. He wrote a whole bunch of songs like Revolution Number 9, Dream Number 9. He just thought it was a magic number in his life. But he called his wife mother, and like after all this turmoil in his life, he decided to retire. And he took 5 years off to raise his son. And like, so like the last 5 years of his life, he quit all the drugs, he quit all the nonsense, and he just baked bread with his son, and he bathed his son, and he tried to like fix his relationship with his first son, because he wasn't a great father, because in the Beatles and he was flying around, but he completely stopped his career. This is like the biggest rock star on the earth. He did nothing for 5 years. And unfortunately, the sad thing is that he did nothing for 5 years. And then he was just happy for the first time because Yoko Ono like got his affairs in order. Yoko Ono actually made every dollar that John Lennon's estate has. Like John Lennon would have died broke without Yoko Ono because he didn't know anything about money, he didn't care about money. So he retires for 5 years and he records his last album, and his last single goes like this. Like, he goes, "It's been so long since we took the time, no one's to blame, I know time flies so quickly, but when we..." Anyway, like the song is called Starting Over, and he was starting over. It was a big hit song. Like he released it like the beginning of December, like December 1st or something like that. The song's starting over. He's like, "It'll be just like starting over." And like he said like the famous line, maybe you've heard it and you don't know the song. He said, "Life is what happens to you when you're making other plans." And unfortunately, what happened to him, life, is that he finally came out of like 35 years of tumult and then 5 years of peace. He's totally sober and he's totally happy, and he's ready to come out of his hiding. Like Paul McCartney was touring the whole time the Beatles broke up. Everybody else was touring. John Lennon never toured. He was fighting immigration cases. He was baking bread. He was ready to reemerge and be a big rock star again and tell people to get along. And then this guy, I don't even like to use his name because the only reason that he did it was because he wanted people to know his name. This guy, I've been there. He lived in New York. There's a place called Strawberry Fields. And it's a dedication to John Lennon. He lived in a place called the Dakotas. It's a really nice apartment building, a beautiful apartment building right by Central Park. And after this happened, they dedicated the circle where all musicians come, and it's called Strawberry Fields. And Strawberry Fields is an orphanage where he grew up. And it just says "Imagine" in this beautiful circle. But what happened is there was this guy, and he just wanted to be famous. It's like Kim Kardashian. What's she famous for? Being famous, right? Like, that's the problem with the world today. People want to be famous. John Lennon wrote a bunch of great songs. He toured. He learned how to play guitar. He went to Germany, and he did nothing but work to get good. And people today, they don't want to work. They just want to be famous. They just want to go on TikTok and do something outrageous and get paid a lot of money and party the rest of their life. John Lennon earned that, and like, he became a good father. But this guy, when his life didn't work out, he was obsessed with John Lennon. He read Catcher in the Rye, and he's probably the reason that you can't read Catcher in the Rye anymore. He was carrying a copy of Catcher in the Rye, and he's hanging out at the Dakota, John Lennon's house. And John Lennon comes out of the house, and the last autograph he ever signed in his life was for this guy. This guy handed him his last album, which is called Double Fantasy, and the single Starting Over's on it. And he's like, "Can I have your autograph?" And John Lennon's getting his limo. And he's like, "Sure." And he signs his name, John Lennon, and he hands it back to the guy. And he says, John Lennon says, "Can I do anything else for you?" He's like, "No, I'm good." And he's like, "All right, have a good day." And then John Lennon goes to the recording studio. He comes back around 8 o'clock at night, and he's going into the Dakota, and the same guy he signed the record album for pulls out a gun and just shoots him 3 times and kills him right in front of his wife, Yoko Ono. And they have to rush him to the hospital, and he's dead. And that guy was carrying a copy of Catcher in the Rye, and he was nuts. He just wanted to be famous. He wanted you to know his name. And it's very unfortunate. People have copied him ever since. Other people have done horrible things with copies of Catcher in the Rye. It's not Catcher in the Rye's fault that this guy that killed John Lennon apparently liked Catcher in the Rye. But it's very sad because his whole thing was like, "I'm back, I'm happy, I'm healthy," and then he got cut down in the prime of his life at the age of 40. So it's sad, but he's an inspirational figure to me because he grew up a messed up kid that was damaged. He turned his life around. I mean, a lot of people you'll see online, they'll say, "John Lennon was a bad guy. He beat his first wife. He hit his first wife," and that's true. But the thing is John Lennon was incredibly honest, and the only reason people knew he hit his first wife is he told them that. There's this Beatles song called "Getting Better," where the lyrics are, "I used to be cruel to my woman. I beat her and kept her away from the things that she loved. Man, it was mean, but I'm changing my scene and I'm doing the best that I can." So like, he was a damaged guy that made mistakes, and like, it's not appropriate to ever hit a woman. I've never hit a woman. I've never raised my voice to a woman. But you know, like, the guy's got the craziest childhood ever. You know, like, they make him choose between parents. His mom dies. His aunt is, so he was just messed up at times, and he made mistakes, and he always apologized for them. And if you listen to the song Jealous Guy, it's like the most beautiful apology ever. But, like the question is, like, do you ever forgive somebody if they commit a crime? Like, what would you forgive? Like, if somebody commits a crime, should they get out of jail?
Depends on the severity of the crime.
All right, but so I rob a liquor store and I steal $100,000 and nobody dies. How long should I go to jail? What?
Well, the liquor store's owner should be able to decide who's like theirs.
The liquor store owner should decide?
Yeah.
What if the liquor store owner just lies? I mean, like, the liquor store owner's angry because his store got robbed. He's going to be overzealous. He's going to go, that guy robbed my store, put him in jail for the rest of his life. So, like, how do you compare a guy that robs a liquor store to somebody that shoots John Lennon? Because you know what happens every time that guy comes up for parole?
What?
And it's been 42 years. He comes up for parole every 5 years. You know what happens? Yoko Ono goes there and says, keep him in jail. But the thing is that there's a guy that I went to school with, and I mean, this is really hard, and I didn't know that what happened, and I still don't know what happened, but I didn't find out about it. He was one of my best friends when I was a kid, and he was the best kid I knew when he was 7 or 8, and he was the best kid ever. And then in 1993, when I was 27, I found out that he killed his wife and he went to jail. And I didn't find out why, and he's probably going to be in jail the rest of his life. And he's actually been a model prisoner, and I would like to see him get out of jail. He works with animals. He's been a model prisoner, and the family doesn't want him ever to get out of jail, and that's a really hard question. But the thing is that something just happened. He was the greatest guy in the world, and something just snapped, and he has no idea what happened that night. So he had a mental breakdown. He doesn't even remember that night, and he's apologizing left and right, but he did kill his wife. But, so you were talking about Therapeutic Thursday, right? You're talking about people that need therapy. So what happens if you're talking about a crime where maybe he had a mental snap? So if you compare somebody who's not in their mental, you guys understand what do you plead if actually the guy that killed John Lennon claimed that he was insane? Because if you claim you're insane, you don't go to jail, you get institutionalized. It's the insanity defense. And so the question is there cases where somebody just has a mental snap and kills somebody? But there is a guy that, he got up on a rooftop in Texas, and he just took a rifle and he shot 30 people in Texas. He planned that out. So how do you judge how long to put a guy in? We got one guy who gets up and plans it out and shoots 30 people from the top of a building in a university. And you got another guy who his wife asks him for a divorce and he loses it and he kills her. And then he wakes up, he calls 911 and he admits it. And he wakes up and he's like, what happened? I don't even remember what happened. How do you judge those two crimes? They're both horrible, but there are murderers that get out. I grew up I went to school in Chicago, all right? And the best basketball player here in Chicago, and maybe the best basketball player in the world, was a kid named Ben Wilson. And Ben Wilson was supposed to be the next Magic Johnson. You can look him up. ESPN did a documentary. It was just right when I got to Chicago, and he lived in the inner city of Chicago. And Ben Wilson, he was a nice kid, but he was having an argument with his girlfriend, and there was an incident at the school, and this kid that was in a gang in Chicago and his friend, they bumped into Ben Wilson when he was having a bad day, and there was an altercation, and this kid shot Ben Wilson in high school. He was going to be an NBA star, he was rich, and he shot him. And the thing was that in Chicago at the time, you know what happened when they got shot? They took you to the closest hospital. And they took him to the closest hospital, but he lived in a black neighborhood. So they didn't take him to a trauma unit, and he bled to death. If they had taken him to a trauma unit, he would have lived. And they changed the law that said when you get shot, you have to be taken to a trauma unit, not the nose. They changed the law. They saved lives because of that. But the thing is that the guy that shot him was a kid in the gang, and he went to jail for years. And you know what he does now? He works with gang kids, telling them not to make the same mistake he does. And Ben Wilson's mother is thanked him, and he's apologized, and they get along, and they work together to stop youth crime. So it's like, that guy should be let out of jail because he's totally reformed. Do you guys understand? Do you know what privatized prisons are? Does anybody know what privatized prisons are? Anybody? What's a privatized prison? If you're smart, show you're smart. It's cool.
Oh yeah. You have to show that you're smart.
Private prisons need to like meet a certain quota.
Although the thing is, what's the difference between Apple and the Department of Treasury?
Apple?
Well, like, are there any non-profit organizations in this school? Does anybody know what a non-profit organization is? Like a charity?
Yes.
All right, like, what's the difference between the Red Cross and Apple? What's the difference between Red Cross and Google?
Well, Apple doesn't like actively try to like support communities while like not.
No, like, one is not, here, listen to me, this is very simple. The Red Cross is not trying to make money. They're trying to help people. Apple's trying to make as much money as they can. They're trying to make profit, right? So privatized prisons are, you know, like, what's the role of prisons in society? They're run by the government. They're not supposed to be run for profit. So here, you're the smartest person in the class and you started this rambling. Hey, what is the purpose of prison? No, what is the purpose? What is the purpose of prison?
Rehabilitation.
That's exactly the word. The purpose of prison is rehabilitation. What is the definition of rehabilitation? Are you enjoying learning math? What is the purpose of rehabilitation? Because we're going to do some math in a second. We're going to do some math in a second. What is the purpose of rehabilitation?
Is to get better.
To get better, to not be a criminal anymore, right? All right, like, so if the government runs a prison and you have 50 people, this is a math problem, you have 50 people in jail, right? And the government gives you $10,000 a year to put those people in jail, right? So you make 50 times 10,000, and then you put those poor people in jail to work, like making license plates, and they make you 50,000 or 50, you know, whatever this is, 500,000. I don't even know if it's right, but you break even, right? That's a government prison. What's the job of a privatized prison? They're a company that's for profit. So you know what these privatized prisons do? They have shareholders, and what do you do for your shareholders? Hi, you make money. So like the thing is, the privatized prison, their goal is to make money. In fact, when you're Apple, you know, when you're Apple and you're the CEO of Apple, what is your job? It is to make as much money as possible for your shareholders, right? So the thing is that if you're a privatized prison, are you trying to rehabilitate people or are you trying to make money? You're trying to make money, but you should be trying to rehabilitate people, right? So like, here's why I hate privatized prisons. What happens, you're the smart guy, I think. Where are they going? Hey, where are you guys? What? Is there something wrong?
I'll go look it up.
No, like, this is really quick. And you appear to be like a metal fan. What is the t-shirt you're wearing?
David Crosby.
David Crosby. All right, David Crosby is kind of a jerk, but his music is good. You appear to be the smartest guy in the class. How much money do you make if you rehabilitate people?
You're not supposed to make money. That shouldn't be the point of
Well,
rehabilitation.
but that's their point. They're trying to make money. How much money do you make if you rehabilitate people?
How much?
You make none because they go back into society. They become. If you rehabilitate everybody, nobody's in prison, and you don't make any money. You guys understand that?
Yeah.
So what's the opposite of rehabilitation? It starts with RE. You're the smartest guy in the class. You listen to David Crosby. It starts with RE. What is profitable?
Where did they go?
Who can get it first?
Recreation.
Recreation? Or
Yes. I don't know. I can't even read the handwriting.
Recidivism equals money.
can you define that word?
Recidivism. Who's got a phone in Google? Recidivism. It means return to the scene of a crime. It means commit another crime.
Oh, you guys so much.
Are you late? Are you committing a crime?
I have to go take an AP test, so they told
All right,
me.
well that means you're smart.
Okay.
All right, are you saying you have to take an AP test here, or you need to give me a pass?
Yeah, I came in late, so they told me to just get it.
All right, guess what? I'm going home in like 15 minutes. I couldn't care if you're 3 hours late. Get a 5 on your AP test. Recidivism means you commit another crime. The point of going to prison is that they want you to never create another crime, right? This is a simple concept. This is a simple concept. You guys missed it, and you were smart before, but you're goofing off now. How much money do you make if you? Do you know? Anybody know what the word bureaucracy is?
Yes.
What is a bureaucracy?
It's basically like a chamber of the executive branch that carries out law.
Right,
Like,
but you know what the purpose of bureaucracy is? Is to always exist because they're getting paid. So they never solve anything because they fill themselves with bureaucratic nonsense. If they solve a problem, they go out of business. If they cure cancer, they go out of business. So the thing is that prisons are supposed to like, there's more prisoners in America than any country in the world. And the point of prisons is to put them in a place to make them never commit crimes again and become constructive citizens, right? But how much money, if you solve the prison problem, if you solve crime, how much money do you make?
More.
None. If nobody commits a crime, how much money do prisons make?
Oh, none.
None.
Yeah.
So you know what
There's no one committing crime.
you know what they say to their shareholders? And here's where like we're going to pretend that we talked about math to your teacher, and you're not going to tell her what a raving lunatic I was. This is a prison. You know who runs the world? Accountants. And you know how they run the world? With math. And here's what they say to their shareholders. Bottom line.
I've actually learned a lot.
This looks like
No,
a
he's.
Look, I could be a doctor. What does that say? It says recidivism equals money. Rehabilitation means we have to get another job. I think that the new sub is here, and I need to get another job.
Aw, no.
Do you understand the point?
Reason for that.
You understand the point? They actually, literally, these privatized prisons, they brag to their shareholders, we do not even try to rehabilitate these people because we will not make any money if we rehabilitate them. In fact, there's a guy in the South, and you know what he was complaining about? He complained about that he had a bunch of workers in prison, and he had some good workers and some bad workers. And he was complaining. He had some lazy people and some hard workers. And he liked the hard workers. And you know what his complaint was? He said, everybody that works hard for me in prison, they let go. And they leave me with all these lazy people. And I'm not getting any work done. And what? The hard workers are rehabilitated. He's upset because they're not doing his job for him. Because they were rehabilitated and they were set free. They earned it. And he's complaining that he's left with the people that aren't working. What? Their purpose is to rehabilitate them, not to make money. But once you privatize something, your purpose is to make money. You know what happened to the post office? Who created the post office? You should have learned this when you were in kindergarten.
Congress.
No, I think it was Benjamin Franklin, this little guy that knows everything and doesn't like to talk. He knew it.
Yeah.
The post office was basically like a socialist thing, and you're not allowed to talk about socialism because that's crazy. Anybody ever hear the song, "Your Land, This Land Is Your Land"?
Yes.
You know what it's about? This land is your land, you know what it's about? You heard it a million times. This land is your land, this land is my land. California. You know what it's about?
No.
It's a pan. Anybody know what an ode is?
I've heard of it.
You know what, like an ode? It's like somebody that worships something, right? So you know what this land is your land is an ode to?
America. Post office.
People think it's an ode to America.
Post office.
People think it's an ode to America. It's because he's talking about this land is your land from the East Coast highways to the Jersey shoreland to the California highways. People think it's an ode to America. They think it's the most patriotic song of all time. And whether it's the most patriotic song of all time or not, it was written by Woody Guthrie, and he had a guitar. And his guitar, he influenced Bob Dylan. His guitar said something cool on it. His guitar said, "This machine kills fascists." "This Land Is Your Land" is an ode to socialism. He's saying, "This land is your land, this land is my land." He's saying, I get to hang out at, he's saying, I get to hang out at your house anytime I want because God put it here first. He said, you might think you own that house, but that land was here before you. We took it from the Indians. We took it from the Native Americans, whatever you want to call them. There's a lot of people that don't know, like financial stuff. Like, did you ever hear did anybody know the legend about the selling of Manhattan? Like, the people think, like, what they teach you in kindergarten is actually, I've taken education classes. They're trying to condition you to be good human beings. And that's why they sing "This Land Is Your Land," but they don't tell you the context. But, you know, like, so the thing is, you learn all these things, like in kindergarten, like George Washington's the greatest human being of all time. They're trying to make you a good citizen and make you believe in America. And then you have to deal with what's going on now, where you have to like deal with what happened to the Native Americans, and it was horrible. But people grew up, when I was growing up, like they would just tell them lies, like about Paul Revere. All that stuff is lies. George Washington throwing quarters, George Washington chopping down the cherry tree and telling the truth, lies. It's a lie about him telling the truth. It's the most absurd thing ever. And people know now what happened to the American Indians, the Native Americans, whatever you want to call them. But one of the big myths of all time was that the whole island of Manhattan, which is New York, which is where John Lennon got shot, was traded, that was stolen from the Indians, where these guys gave these Indians a bunch of beads. And they traded New York for a bunch of beads. And New York is worth a lot more money. Do you ever hear the phrase, like, he sold them the Brooklyn Bridge? That's a con man thing. You go like, hey, here's the deed to the Brooklyn Bridge. You give me $50 for it? It's a con man trick. But it's gone down in history as like the worst trade, and I was a trader, the worst trade ever, that these Native Americans sold Manhattan Island for a bunch of beads. But the thing is that economically, the value of anything is just whatever somebody's worthy to pay for it. And say that you own Manhattan and somebody offered you beads and you didn't have a better offer, then that's what it's worth. But the myth is that supposedly they bought Manhattan for those beads. It just happened that those dudes were there, and there were some Native Americans that were hunting that weren't from Manhattan, and some people offered them some beads, and they took off and left. It had nothing. They weren't selling Manhattan. They were just hanging out in Manhattan, hunting, and going back to somewhere else. So that's like a cultural. They teach you a lot of things that aren't true, and the reason that they teach them to you is they want you to be good citizens. But then you find out that they're not true, and you have to deal with the consequences of them being not true. You know, they told you, like in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue, and he did, but we have Columbus Day. Like here, this is a kid I taught in Little League. This is a kid I raised from Little League. And I have this dilemma, right? He's Italian. He's proud of being Italian. Columbus was Italian, right? And he's the Italian ambassador. He's the leader of the Italian. He was a Little League kid when I knew him. He was 8. And now he's like 28, and he is the leader of the Italian American community in San Francisco. He runs the recreation center. And there are many Italian people. The DiMaggio family, the baseball players, Joe DiMaggio and his brothers, they were fishermen. And they're Italian. There's a big Italian community. And the people in San Francisco are very liberal, and they wanted to change the name of Columbus Day to Indigenous People Day, because a lot of crimes were committed. And you know, Columbus was never even in America. I mean, they tell you that they thought the world was flat, and that's why he sailed, to prove the world was flat. Like, he was a brave guy that was going to go off the edge of the island. He was actually an idiot that thought he was going to India, and then the people he saw, he called them Indians. He went the wrong way, and he got lucky. I mean, America is named after Amerigo Vespucci, and Columbus was never in America. But the thing is, they want to change, they changed the name in Columbus Day to American Indigenous People Day. And my Little League kid was against it. And I was like, well, you got to admit that Columbus, a lot of bad things were done because of Columbus. And what was his argument? Does anybody know what his argument was? his argument was that as the head of the Italian American community, for the past 150 years, they've had Italian pride fairs where they serve like pasta and pizza, and they show pride for their culture. And he's like, we've been doing this for 150 years. Like, you're taking our holiday away. We don't have anything to do with Columbus. We're just Italian, and that's been traditionally when we celebrated, and we fed the whole community. He's like, you know, like, we understand we're not for what Columbus did to the Indians, but we want to be proud of ourselves too. And that's the problem with America, is everybody wants to be proud of themselves. Nobody wants to get along. You know? I mean, the point is like, you know how much time I've spent here in this town? Like, I was 18 and I got into Northwestern and I left.
Wait, you went to Northwestern?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I got an early admission. I got straight A's. And I graduated in 3 years with a minimum amount of credits.
I'm applying next year.
All right, well, like, the thing is I interviewed a kid named Aaron here, and I did my best to get him in. I don't think he got in, but I did my best to get him. And so the thing is that I don't know my way around Cleveland very well. You know why? Because I only drove down Mayfield Road in 306. I went to West Geauga. I was on after a challenge. I was out of here. Like, I didn't even go to school after I got an early admission. I missed like 100 days my senior year. Actually, I missed 50, but I would get half credit for just showing up and signing my name. And then I went to Chicago. I went to Los Angeles. I got transferred to San Francisco. I coached Rob Williams' son. I went to Los Angeles for a couple of years. I worked in New York for C Group. I worked in Chicago again. I've traveled. I've been to the Netherlands. I've been to Spain. I've been to England. I've been to Paris. I've been to Colombia. And you know what? When you travel and when you leave your hometown, you realize that everybody's the same. And if you meet them, they're cool. We're cool. Like, if you meet, like, if you're in a gang and you have, like, West Side Story, like, it just came out again. But the whole point of it is you're gang and you're fighting, and then you go, like, you know, like, if you have two gangs, right, and you pick the two toughest kids to fight each other because you're two gangs and you pick the two toughest kids to fight each other, and then they're fighting each other, and then they say to each other, dude, why are we fighting? We're exactly the same. We're the toughest kid in our neighborhood. We both like the same music. We're the same. What do you do on that?
Do you still do interviewing for Northwestern? Like, do you interview?
I did it this year, and I just did it because they were short, but maybe I'll do it.
Oh.
Are you trying to bribe me?
No, I'm
No,
just
I would give you a
wondering.
good recommend. I have no idea.
Okay.
What would you
I
want?
think you would appreciate the back of the shirt.
What?
I think you would appreciate the back.
Does it say like tin soldiers and Dixie coming?
Can you read it?
If you smile,
Yeah.
I will understand.
The problem is, the only problem I have with David Crosby is he's an incredibly talented musician.
Yeah.
But David Crosby will admit that he's a jerk. He's like, it's the first person to say, I'm a jerk. He's kind of a jerk. Does anybody know these lyrics? It's like, tin soldiers and Nixon coming, we finally found our way. Is anybody planning on going to Kent State? Because you're going to hear that song like 8,000 times. Nobody's heard that song? For Dead in Ohio. Do you even know what it's about? It's about the shooting at Kent State over the Vietnam War. If you go to Kent State, you're going to hear that song 10,000 times. But, you know, like, so some people write songs about nonsense, some people write songs about politics. David Crosby didn't write that song. Neil Young wrote that song. So, like, I don't know if you're a David Crosby fan, or you're a Crosby, Stills and Nash fan, are you a Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young fan, are you a Hollies fan, are you a Byrds fan? Do you know all those bands? Do you know the Byrds? The Byrds, B-Y-R-D-S? B-Y-R-D-S? All right, like, let me tie it all together miraculously at the last second. Woody Guthrie, the guy with the guitar that said this guitar kills fascists, right? Who was his greatest protege, and he won a Nobel Prize in literature. He's Jewish, and he's like considered the biggest preeminent genius of the 20th century. What's his name?
Bob Dylan.
What's his original name? Robert Zimmerman. He's from Minnesota. He was a Woody Guthrie fanatic. He became Bob Dylan. He's America's poet. And he wrote a song, and he sang it on the March on Washington, where Martin Luther King said, "I have a dream." He was there, a white guy, a white Jewish guy, and he sang this song called "Only a Pawn in the Game." Anybody know what "Only a Pawn in the Game" is? And it all ties together with recidivism equals money. Only a pawn in the game. He's talking about the killing of Medgar Evers. He said the bullet from the back of Medgar Evers' gun he's talking about the killing of Medgar Evers by a poor white man in the Ku Klux Klan. And what he says is, if you listen to the lyrics, because he was ahead of Martin Luther King at the time, Bob Dylan, it's called Only a Pawn in the Game. He says, the rich politicians in the South tell you that you're better than African American people because you got white skin. But they're only doing it because they want to stay rich. They're telling you not to get along, to be racist and kill each other, because it's all about money. So Bob Dylan, at the speech on Washington, said, it is not black, it is not white, it is green. And they are telling you to hate each other so they can keep making money. In fact, if you see the movie Mississippi Burning, like, have anybody seen the movie Mississippi Burning with Gene Hackman? You've seen it? It's about the killing of 3 civil rights workers by the Ku Klux Klan in the South. It really happened. The police killed them. And the characters Gene Hackman plays, they're both FBI agents. And if you read about J. Edgar Hoover, you'll find out he's one of the worst, most racist person in the world. He tried to get Martin Luther King to kill himself. Gene Hackman's character in the movie, and he's not racist at all. He said, it's just the way we were brought up. They told us when we were kids that we were better because we had white skin. And there's actually a Bob Dylan song called With God on Our Side. It says, like, America, basically, the Puritans believed in God and they thought that they were better than everybody else. The whole point is, we're supposed to get along. We're all God's children. We're supposed to all get along and realize we're cool. And the thing is you're going to realize that you have long hair and you like hippie music. This kid is probably a video game fanatic, and in 5 years, he's going to be running like Apple, and you're going to be doing something cool, and you're going to get together at your arena, and you're going to go, you know what? You're a smart kid. And you're going to go, you were a smart kid too. We should have hung out in high school. We should have hung out in high school. Why didn't we hang out in high school? The reason you didn't hang out in high school is because he's playing video games and you're listening to rock and roll music. But then in 5 years, you're going to high five and go, we have the best lives possible. We had a great high school. We lived in one of the most profitable neighborhoods of all time. We didn't have to go to a horrible school. You know, like, you guys, you kids are pretty rich. You got it pretty good. There was a kid when I went to Northwestern, his name was Willie Perry. And I had the best job in the world. At Northwestern, I got to manage the browsing library. It was a music listening room. I just got to goof off. And I worked harder to get that job than I did in 4 years at Northwestern. And this summer, this kid, Willie Perry, he was just this African-American kid on campus reading Forbes. And I just started hanging out with him. I didn't really ask him where he was, why he was there. His name was Willie Perry, and he was just hanging out at Northwestern reading Forbes. And like, I was in a fraternity, and he was around, and we were throwing the football around. It's summertime, and I just thought he was a kid on campus. And then he called me in the middle of the night. And you know why he called me in the middle of the night? Because he got arrested. And the thing is that, you know, like Chuck Berry wrote a song called Arrested on Charges of Unemployment. He got arrested for loitering at Northwestern. And I needed to pay $50 to bail him out of jail. And he disappeared, and he left me 20 bucks. And he said, this is the best I can do, and I never saw him again. And I found out that he left home. That was a kid that was dying to educate himself. He wanted to go to Northwestern so bad. He was hanging out on campus, and he was reading Forbes. He was trying to educate himself. He wanted to go to that school so bad. You guys are so lucky. And you know what? I've lent a lot of people money, and they have not paid me back. And I'm okay with that, but like, a lot of people I've lent money to, and then they resent me for lending money, and they're not friends anymore. You don't lend money to people. It usually causes problems. And Willie Perry still owes me $30. I don't have a problem with Willie Perry. Willie Perry probably only had $40 to his name. He did his best to pay me back. All that kid wanted was to be educated. So if you get into Northwestern, appreciate that you got in there. Because Willie Perry wanted to go there so bad, and he wound up in jail. And he probably had 30 bucks to his name, and he gave me 20 for bailing him out. All he wanted to do was to be educated. And that's the point of being here. Educate yourself. I don't care if you do it here. I don't care if you do it in math. I don't care if you do it in social sciences. Pick up a book. Don't play video games, and learn something. Because if you play Candy Crush for 3 hours, you learn nothing. What's the point of Candy Crush? Like Tetris, I guess, actually you can learn something, but play Tetris. you learn it in 5 seconds. What you're doing when you play Tetris is killing time and pushing buttons. Pick up a book and learn something, you know? Because I haven't. And like, I don't do this. Like, they just begged me to do it, and I'm going to Canada on Sunday. And I just did it because I want you people to be good people. And the thing is that I really do. I used to coach Rob Williams' son in Little League, and I did it for free, and I gave them all books at the end of the year because books are awesome. Books are awesome, man. And I can tell. You know what my criticism of Cleveland is? Everybody listens to that 70s music. It's playing non-stop, and they don't know what the lyrics mean. You ever heard the song "Volunteers of America" by Jefferson Airplane? They played it in military. They played it at military appreciation. They played a video. They're talking about violent revolution. They don't even listen to lyrics.
Yeah, you didn't need me? I mean, I was supposed to.
I have no idea. I'm not raving lunatic.
I'm done. I only have to do for 4 seats.
Oh.
And you just, yeah.
Dude, like it sounds like you actually read books about the music you listen to. All right, the Byrds were the band that first did Bob Dylan's, like famous in Tambourine. Yeah. And he was in the Byrds, and then he left the Byrds to be the president of the band. I'm impressed. You look like a slacker, but you know your stuff. When it starts getting played, you win.
Thank you, sir.
You're okay, thank you.